We are so excited to be here today at the ASU+GSV Air Show. If you don't know anything about ASU, I would recommend learning one thing, and that's our charter. We measure ourselves by whom we include, not who we exclude, and how those students succeed. We also care deeply about the communities we serve, and we're accountable for those communities. And so today we're gonna talk about ASU's approach towards AI and the technology advancements of which we have to move fast to innovate at the rate we need to serve more students globally. So I wanna start today to talk a little bit about the challenges that we face globally. Today, we have 40 million Americans who have some college education but have not completed. We also have 400 million learners in demand for higher education globally. And so when we think about AI, we do not think about it as artificial intelligence. We think about it as augmented intelligence. And the reason that is because it's supposed to augment, enhance, and amplify human potential. And so as we think about AI and the future of which we are moving toward, Elizabeth, I'd love to hear more about how ASU is uniquely approaching AI within the university.
Absolutely, Amanda. So at Arizona State University, everything that we do is focused on impact. So for us, we really look across our broader landscape and we look at the challenges we're facing, we look at the opportunities that we see in scale, how to serve our students in better ways. And instead of painting the whole world with generative AI, we look for that perfect intersection between where we have a challenge, we have an opportunity, and AI is that correct solution for that challenge. Then we focus in on that particular area and we iterate and iterate and iterate. We start with experimentation. We think generative AI is the right solution. Is it really the right solution? Now that can look a lot of different ways across a lot of different areas. So for example, with our partnership with OpenAI, we do an AI innovation challenge where we have anyone from across Arizona State University can submit for our AI Innovation Challenge. What they have to do is define what is that use case? Where do they think generative AI can make an impact? And then they have to come up with some kind of an assessment plan. How are you going to assess that success? And then we evaluate those proposals. Those that rise to the top, we give those licenses so that people can experiment and then share back with us what worked well, what didn't work well, what surprised you, and what was really successful. So we're always focusing on that impact. So that can look like anything for any different place. Even if you got 20 ChatGPT plus licenses at your individual school or your university, and let people experiment with those licenses, really focusing on that impact. It doesn't have to be at an ASU scale to really make a difference for your students.
I love that. And when I think about the student journey, what we understand is that 99% of a learner journey is unique. And so as we think about solving for these global challenges, Auryan, I'm curious how your team might be thinking about this in the space of digital teaching and learning and how we're plugging into what Elizabeth said within the infrastructure of which we're thinking about scale, but also how do you get started? Knowing that not everyone has the same resources and the same expertise right now in this area. I'm just curious how you're thinking about, on your team, the maturity of AI.
No, that's a good question. Before we even get into the maturity of AI, I think in terms of our approach for this technology, we're coming at this in a very holistic manner. I think when folks think about AI in education, very quickly, the first thought that comes to mind is some sort of AI tutor in the classroom with students, augmenting them as they're going through their coursework. And we see a lot of value in that, and we do have projects in that area. However, we need to be thinking about the entire student journey, to your point, and not only students supporting them inside and outside the classroom, but also supporting our faculty and supporting our staff to augment the entire ASU online ecosystem to bring efficiencies to everyone. So one, we're doing this at a very large scale, but two, to your point, the principled innovation aspect of making sure we're doing the right things and understanding where the technology's at. A huge part of how we've structured our strategy is around the AI maturity model you're all looking at on the screen up here. So I want to talk about two main phases of this model. We don't have enough time to go through the whole thing, but I want to start with the phase 4 and the final goal of this sort of model, which is a full enterprise AI. This is our aspirational goal to have AI interwoven into every single process where it makes sense at ASU in a way that's natural. We're not even thinking about AI anymore. It's the same way we breathe air. You're not thinking about it, you're just doing it. We want this technology to be the same way. So that being our goal, we sort of worked backwards from there to figure out the steps we need to go through to get to that point. And right now we're still in that first phase, which is all about exploration and experimentation. When it comes to AI, it's still the wild, wild west. There's still a lot of unknowns. Something I heard recently is this is the first pitch and the first inning and the first game in the World Series of AI. So we're going to be learning a lot very soon. And in order for you to learn, you got to experiment. So we're doing a lot of work. We're doing proof of concepts. We're working with vendors. We're building internally. We're getting ideas from students. We're trying everything, throwing it at the wall, seeing what sticks, and then building on those learnings to advance the work that we're doing and figure out more areas that make sense for us to invest in, so we're not just trying to throw AI at everything.
So I'm curious, talk to us about what you've learned, the reality of these projects and these proof of concepts.
No, that's a great question. So going back to the exploration and experimentation phase, we quickly learned, and I think a lot of people know, AI is not this silver bullet that's going to solve all your problems overnight. The biggest tip we could give you now is to acquaint yourself with the realities of this technology. 15% of the POCs you build or you start from an AI perspective, only 15% of those are going to be successful. Of that 15%, only 53% will actually make it in. 53% will make it into production. Whether that's, hey, you built a great product, but the cost to run this is just not worth it for the user, or hey, we built a great product, but we don't have the mechanism to deliver it to students at scale. There's a ton of factors outside of the technology, the AI technology itself, that will keep you from building viable solutions for your students. And even then, when you do build a viable solution, it can still take 3 to 6 months to actually see ROI from that product. So acquainting yourselves with the reality of the technology so you know the journey you're about to go on is such a key aspect to getting the most out of the work that you're doing.
One thing, Elizabeth, I heard you say the other day is that today is the worst AI will ever be. And so hearing that the concerns around AI output, whether it is the biases, hallucination, the security around it, can you talk a little bit more about what your team's doing to kind of mitigate or get ahead of that within ASU?
Yeah, absolutely, Amanda. And for just 1 second, I want to go back to that maturity model, because Auryan said beautifully how we want to get to a place where we're able to embed AI fully into our experiences where it makes sense. The way that ASU is approaching this is we're seeing that long game. Like, yes, we're right in this phase 1 going into this phase 2, but we're planning 3 steps ahead to get to that end state for enterprise AI. So in order to do that, we've built an in-house platform that is our Create AI platform. It's all within our ASU Secure Garden Wall, so we can innovate in a secure way. We released the first version of that platform with 6 large language models in October of 2023. Now our platform has 21 large language models. You can play with some of our experiences over at our ASU booth after you hear us talk today if you'd like, and get hands-on with our work. But that platform is really important for helping our community to be able to innovate, but innovate safely. So in addition to that platform providing safe and secure innovation, from a technology standpoint, principled innovation is extraordinarily important to all of the work that we do. So at ASU, we have 9 design aspirations. Those design aspirations guide our work. They help us to see the ways in which we can really live our charter of inclusion and access. So principled innovation is that 9th design aspiration. There's a few ways that we hold ourselves accountable to principled innovation. Some of them do require a lot of technology that we have at ASU, we're very lucky to, but some are not technology solutions. So for example, we have our Faculty Ethics Committee on AI Technology that meets and helps to set some guiding principles for what are the ways that we can interact and build technology in ethical ways, respecting consent, respecting the privacy and safety of our students. So anybody can bring together their experts, their faculty, their staff, to have conversations, create guiding principles, create those guidelines, and then hold yourselves accountable to those principles. We also have an evaluation framework that we built into our AI platform. That evaluation framework, we didn't just create it from scratch. We started with the frameworks that are existing out there and took the things that were most important to the work that we're doing. So we started with the Stanford Helm framework. We use a lot of the pieces of that framework, a lot of the different machine learning methodologies to look at things like bias, look at things like disinformation, look at things like fairness. And then we've added on additional metrics that help us to meet our needs and help us to more holistically evaluate our models and our products that we create in-house, but also the vendor products that we're looking at purchasing. So we're able to compare internal products and external products across the same set of metrics. That's been extraordinarily important. And yes, that's a framework that involves a lot of machine learning outputs, but it also involves human evaluation as well. So we have not found machine learning methods to evaluate things like accuracy that are vitally important at this stage where generative AI is in a really holistic and fulfilling way. And so we still have humans evaluating accuracy. The first version of our evaluation framework was a Google Sheet. So now we have a platform. Now it's a very technology enhanced environment, but we started with a Google Sheet, and that saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment in vendors that we were looking at from evaluating things with common sets of metrics. And we saw, hey, you know what? These products, they're not mature enough. They're not there. They're not giving us the information that we need. They look great on the outside. They even look great when you're interacting with them. But the data's just not there to support the level of accuracy that we need to ensure that our students are going to be successful and not get that bad information. So we were able to move on from those vendor products and saved ourselves a lot of time and money.
I mean, AI is so much more than algorithm and data, and I think that's what we're trying to get at today. AI is people. Again, it is augmenting ourselves, our intelligence, the intellect within our K-12 districts, our faculty, our students. And if we have to solve for these global challenges of helping students who are in demand, wanting quality education, accessible education, that means we need individualized learning, personalized learning. And we need to be able to augment our abilities to do that. And so I'm just curious, like based on what ASU is doing, what learnings do you have? What are you currently working on? Like, tell us a little bit more about like what right now is even at the booth and available for anyone here to visit.
Yeah, that's a great question. So two things. First, I want to talk about one of the products we are showcasing at the booth. In addition to the wonderful platform Elizabeth Reilley just described, we also have a tool to help students with the degree discovery process. It's called the Degree Recommendation Engine. Students can answer a few questions about themselves. With that data we collect, we can actually start to pair them with degrees, not only showcase degrees that are a good fit for them, but using generative AI, we can also produce a description that explains why that degree is a good fit for the student. The student said you wanted X with the goal to achieve Y. Well, this degree offers X and will help you get to Y through these means. So it's a really, really fantastic tool, I think. If you want to check it out, it's at the booth. But the thing that we learned the most about this tool is obviously, when you talk about AI, the big concerning things that come to mind are like bias, accuracy, like you were mentioning, averting risk. You know, most of us are at some sort of educational institution. We can't have chatbots in classes that are telling students 2 + 2 is 5. We need to make sure that these chatbots are accurate in providing the correct information. And we found one of the largest ways we could start to mitigate all of those things has nothing to do with the model and the configuration, but the design of the experience and the user experience around the service that you're providing. So even with this tool here, the Degree Recommendation Engine, you'll notice it doesn't look like a chatbot. It looks like a quiz, like you've seen before if you've gone on BuzzFeed. It's the exact same thing. However, the back end and the logic behind it is the exact same thing as something you would find in ChatGPT. And so we did that intentionally, and it does 3 things for us, like I mentioned. It helps us mitigate risk because one, since you don't have a chatbot input, a chatbot input where students can type in any response. When you can type in any response, any input, you can get any response. And that's risk. We don't know what students are gonna type in. And so it makes it really hard to test the chatbot to make sure that we're not going to provide any information that isn't correct. And so by having this quiz-based format, we know all the potential inputs that a student can give, so we can test against that to make sure, hey, we have a finite number. We know we're getting great outputs for each of those individual inputs. That also helps with consistency. Again, since we have a finite number of things that are going in, we can test all of those and not just make sure that we're saying something we don't feel comfortable with, but making sure the answers we provide are quality responses given that set of questions. This is something that's not possible at the scale that chatbots operate at, and we've been able to solve for that with the design. And the last piece that I think a lot of people don't consider with these AI tools is the cost. Every single time you are asking that chatbot a question, there's a cost associated with it. You could have a student that goes back and forth with the chatbot hundreds of times, and when you talk about scaling that across tens of thousands of students, that cost can get out of control very quickly. So by designing the experience the way that we did, there's one quiz, there's one input, you get one response with everything that student needs, and there's no going back and forth. And so now we've reduced risk, we've increased consistency, and we have a model that makes a lot more sense from a cost perspective, which again is some of the biggest blockers when it comes to AI. So my biggest piece of advice to everyone is think outside of chatbots. Think about how this technology can be used in novel ways or augment processes that you already have that aren't just, another ChatGPT clone.
So Auryan, we talk a lot at ASU about how our AI strategy is impact-driven and data-informed. Can you talk a little bit about how data informed the creation of this experience?
Yes, that's a great question. So in terms of the data that was leveraged for this, you hit on it earlier. It's principled innovation. We're not just solving problems for the sake of it. We're not just throwing AI at everything. The reason we made this product is we actually saw a bunch of behavior on our website. Students are going to our degree pages, they are sorting them by alphabetical order, and they're not using any of the filters, and they just scroll down the website. And most students don't even make it past the C's because there's so many degrees, there's so much information, there's so much to take in there that students get overwhelmed. They have choice paralysis and they leave the website, which we see is awful. These are students who are engaged, who are excited, who want to come to ASU, and just the way that our data and our information is structured, it keeps them from being successful. So when we saw this problem, we saw an opportunity to leverage AI to solve it in a very unique way. And that's actually where the idea for the degree recommendation engine came into play.
And Amanda, you'd asked about our lessons learned. One of the lessons that I've learned throughout this process is to not recreate the wheel. So for example, early on, we were talking about what policies do we need to make, what do we need to do with our security review structure, all kinds of things. I looked at our data policy. The only thing we needed to change in our data policy was to clarify that it also applied to AI. The only thing that we needed to change in our security review policy is make sure that people were very clear that those things also applied to AI. So a lot of what you have today, you can use. Don't recreate the wheel unless there is something that's really unique about AI or about a particular experience and ways to govern things. A lot of what you have today is just fine.
And one other thing I want to touch on is, from what I understand, is we're also starting with staff. And so can you talk a little bit about how we're approaching right now releasing AI out?
Yes, so because of all of the issues with hallucinations and with many, many other things that Auryan brought up with the student experience, we're really afraid to put AI help bots in front of our students. One of the things that keeps me up at night is if our team creates a product and that product is in front of a student and gives that student bad information that gets them off track. That absolutely terrifies me. And so one of the things that we're doing is we're creating experiences for our staff. So for example, we're creating a support co-pilot that the folks that pick up the phone every time a student, faculty, or staff member has a question, they have a whole lot of different knowledge bases and sources of knowledge that they're going to, a bunch of different websites, our Salesforce knowledge base, our ServiceNow knowledge base. So what we're doing is we're creating an AI-enabled experience that looks across all of those knowledge bases. The staff member can enter in the question. We bring back a nicely worded response along with all the citations for that response. The staff member can then QA that response. Is it accurate? Change the things that aren't. They're feeding us information. They're letting us know where is that experience performing well? Where is it accurate and where is it not? So that we can make a data-informed decision. Before we put that experience directly in the hands of our students, we'll have the data about accuracy that our staff have given us. So that's a gift.
Thank you. Thank you both. Today, if you want to touch base with us, you can find us at the ASU booth.